So first of all,
I would like to say thank you so much for sharing so many beautiful thoughts and ideas. Of course, your life journey was interesting, right? But you motivated me to do so many things, which so far I refrain myself. Like an adventurous life I don't lead, but I hope that from now onwards I'll take some risk. I'll take some more risk in my life. So, the students
Ganesh,
who would like to ask any questions?
pass on the mics.
Excellency, first of all, very bonzo. So, I would like to ask one question. Like in the beginning time, I started learning English. So, I started learning accent also. So, I started speaking in accent. But people started laughing at me. So, I stopped. I stopped completely. So, my question is that should I continue with it or not?
Which kind of accent do you mean? American accent?
American accent I started. Sorry? American accent.
Yes. He would like to know your opinion about learning accents. Like many non-native speaker, when they try to learn English, they go for American or British accent.
Yes.
So what would you suggest about this?
I think this is my opinion, that British accent is more elegant than US accent. US accent is quite heavy. But this is just a personal opinion. And of course the accent is not the most important. And please do not worry if people are laughing at your accent. Never worry about that. People have been laughing at my accent for the last 40 years. You know? So I get used to it. I mean, laughing at my French accent. But I would rather recommend the British accent because it's lighter. But accent is one thing. Articulating is another thing. And it's even more important. When I was in China, it was difficult for me to understand my Chinese staff because there was no space between words, you know, when they were speaking. So, like in Chinese, you know, so the words were flowing, you know, all attached. So I had to make the exercise myself of separating, you know, the words. So articulating, speaking slowly, saying things in a very simple and straight to the point way, this is the most important. And never get nervous speaking English.
Thank you very much.
No, my pleasure.
So, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. My name is Komal and I am a student of journalism. So, I would like to ask one question. As you have written many novels, so from where did you get the inspiration? From where did you get the inspiration?
She would like to know your inspirations.
Oh, this is a very difficult question. Next question, please. No, I'm going to answer. Where do I get inspiration? You mean inspiration for speeches?
Or writing.
For writing, because it's very different. Inspiration for writing speeches, I was using internet, you know. I had a collection of speeches. I learned the way speeches were built, you know. It's always more or less the same thing. then you adopt a plan, then you think of a conclusion, then you have to be simple, you know. Just try to develop one or two ideas. No need to think that you are going to reshape the world and you are going to contribute to the advancement of civilizations and so on. So that's for speeches. And now for novels. I was born with a lot of imagination, and I was born in a place where there was not much to do, because it was a little bit in the middle of nowhere. So the best way to escape was in the head, you know, in the mind. So I have always been thinking, well, we are all thinking a lot, of course, but I always had a lot of ideas crossing my mind. And for instance, when I decided to move to the Seychelles, it was because as a teenager I had a dream, like all teenagers, to live on a treasure island. I never found the treasure, but I live on an island considered as a treasure island because before the first settlers arrived there, it was just used by pirates who were hiding their treasures there, you know. So once again, it's the same story. No regret. Good and bad memories, but no regret, and a few secrets. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Gul.
Pass that pipe, please.
First, we start with questions from volunteers. Then I will at random. No, don't worry, I do not want to terrify you.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Not good. Good morning, sir. My name is Anupam. I am basically an IT professional in an IT company. Is it not audible?
Feel free to shout. Thank you.
So, good morning, sir. My name is Anupam.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. My name is Anupam, and I am basically an IT professional
Yes.
in an IT company. And I really love the way you actually speak. And I really love when you say that don't regret. Be comfortable while speaking. And take risk in your life.
And
It is really
a secret of the life that I definitely will try to incorporate this. So my question here is, since you are in India from a long time and you are working very closely with politicians and the bureaucrats of India, okay. So my question here is, what do you feel, who is actually running India, the bureaucrats or politicians? Because you are a very good writer also. So I just want to know this thing.
So he would like to know, according to you, who is running this country, politicians or bureaucrats? Because he needs you closely work with them, so probably you can just speak your opinion. Politicians are running this country or bureaucrats?
Well, the first thing you have to know is that diplomats do not interfere, you know, in internal affairs. And I do not think that you will ever hear an ambassador saying that it is either politicians or it is diplomat. But something about India, about Indian culture, is that Indians are very argumentative. I think they understand the word argumentative. It is in the nature. When you read the newspaper, when you see all the brain, all the cleverness, all the brilliant, capacity to express views, it's amazing. When I was in China, the Chinese government, at whatever level, Chinese officials, they were all saying the same thing. In India, it's exactly the opposite. So I wouldn't say that the country is run by politicians or by bureaucrats. I'm an observer. I have noticed that there is a very high level of bureaucracy, but it was the case in other countries where I was accredited. You see, I was ambassador to China, and I was accredited in Korea, in Japan, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos, in Singapore, and I'm still accredited in 8 countries. And what I have noticed is that in most countries, which used to be a colony or a dependency of another country, there is quite a high level of bureaucracy. To some extent, this is inherited from the past. And it is quite normal that in a country which used to be a colony, there is a need for local intelligentsia to be involved in the politics and to express their views. Let us not forget that India is such a huge country. It's the biggest democracy in the world, and the price to pay to be a democracy is this kind of politics, So you must think, end of the day, what is important? I would say it's the freedom to express one's views. In China it was impossible. I was accredited to some countries like Cambodia and Laos and also Vietnam, even Thailand nowadays. You do not have this freedom, the level of freedom that you find in India. So even if your question, if you have a point in asking the questions, I have to apologize for not being able to say the country is run either by politicians or by bureaucrats. What I think is that whatever is happening in India, it's normal at this stage of development. And I think that it belongs to you, to the people of your generation and the coming generation, to make sure that in 20 years, in 40 years, your own children will not ask, who is running the country? This is my humble view.
Thank you so much. You said about that Indians are very argumentative. Yes. I came to know about this when I got married. Your Excellency, when I was going through some facts about your country, I came to know that it's a myth or what, like if a husband beats his wife, the more he beats, the stronger love they have.
It was a fact, was
It was
available.
the same fact, sir, that if a wife is getting beaten by her husband, so their love will get stronger and stronger.
We read something
So,
about Seychelles.
Maybe it was in the ancient time.
No, I think in Seychelles it's a bit different in the way that women are stronger than men. And usually men are beaten by their wife. Not the other way around. You see, Seychelles is a traditional society. It's a small island in the middle of the ocean, and the activity for men is either they are farmers or they are fishermen, and most of them are fishermen. So during the day, they are at sea. Who is in charge of the household? Women. Women are the ones who are also in charge of the education of the kids, you know. And Seychelles women, I may assure you, are stronger than men. In the administration, all senior posts, most senior posts, are in the hands of ladies, not men. You know, we have the same number of men and women who sit at the National Assembly, and I think that the salary paid to men is similar to the one, or rather, the salary paid to women is equal to the one paid to women. So I seldom heard of women beaten by their husband, but I have very often heard of men beaten by their women. And when you go to the emergency unit at the hospital, there will be more men than women.
Okay, yeah, Isha.
So good morning, sir. My name is Isha.
Good morning, sir. My name is Diksha, and I am the student of commerce. So, sir, as obviously you have achieved so many things in your life. So, I am very keen to know about the greatest achievement of your life, if you can tell us.
The major achievements of my life.
Yes, yes.
It would be easier for me to to tell you what I would like to achieve.
Yeah.
I do not think that there is a time in your life where you should say, I have achieved this, I have achieved that, and so on. We have to remain humble. Our friends, our children, our parents may have the feeling that we have achieved something. But when you talk of your achievement, it seems that you have learned from your successes. But the most important is to learn from our mistakes, you know. And if we want to move ahead, we have to learn from our mistakes. So rather than telling you what I have achieved, I will tell you what I have not achieved. And many things actually. Although my parents taught me to cook, I am a terrible cook. That's one thing I have not achieved. I have not achieved to remain the slim young man I was in my youth. And I must say that Indian cuisine is not helping you to stay slim, you know. I have not achieved learning more languages. I have not achieved starting to understand something to arithmetics, for instance. As far as I've always been, interested in fine arts and literature and so on. But when you are an ambassador, one of the main aspects of modern diplomacy is what we call economic diplomacy. We are posted in various countries to promote the economic interest of our own country. So definitely commerce is not one of my strong points, and I do regret it, because in today's world, because of globalizations and so on, it is of tremendous importance to understand trade negotiations, either bilateral or multilateral. And the list of what I have achieved is probably very short, but the list of what I haven't achieved is most certainly long, and I guess you have many other things today that listening to the list of my failures, but I'm just normal and human. And someone said one day that the only room where there is empty space in the room for improvement. And we should always keep this in mind, and always put the bar a little bit higher. Someone said that some of the most fantastic achievements of mankind were made in the name of hopes which were totally unrealistic, exaggerate. And this is also the same at our own level. You have a potential that you still ignore, because life has not put you in a situation where you have to go beyond your limits. But you must have trust in yourself. And then you will start achieving things in the eyes of others. But for you, remain humble.
Thank you so much. Good morning, sir. My name is Indu. Welcome to our institute. Sir, my question is from you. As you said that in your speech, you are also a very bad student in learning languages. Can you share us some tips related to learning languages which you create interest? And one more question, what is the difference between textbook language and novel languages? Because students didn't find interest in reading textbook language, whereas other side they find interest in reading novels and all these things. Thank you.
So she has basically two questions. One, would you like to suggest her some tips by which learning language will be more interesting? And second one is, what is the difference between novel language and generally textbook languages?
So the first point, you want some tips to master language. I think the most important is to believe in yourself, to believe that you can make it, to believe that learning a language is not the end of the world. It's not beyond your capacity. It's self-confidence, developing your self-confidence. Talk to foreigners, talk to your colleagues who are students. Nothing can replace practice. You may have a very good theoretical understanding of English, Spanish, German, and so on. As long as you do not speak it, you will be limited in your capacity to communicate with others. And I think the main tip is, when we have discussions, when you want to say in a language, for instance in English, that it is raining, just say it is raining. No need to say that the sky was getting darker and darker, the birds were flying from the trees, something was going to happen. Simplicity. Languages are, or to say, the purpose of the language, the goal of the language is to help people to communicate. It is for us to express our humanity and so on. We have to remain as simple as possible. Whenever you have the choice between two words, always choose the word corresponding to the most simple level of language. Later on in your life, you will find yourself in situations where it may be useful that you understand more complicated words. But when you are a learner, just use practical English. Words and constructions that everybody will understand. And this way you will get more and more confident. But it's true that we live at a time when we have to become specialist. And so it is important that in addition to mastering general English, you also focus on the area in which you want to specialize for your job, for your career, and so on. So the only tip is that whatever you get in life, you have to make efforts to get it. There is no fast track. There is no shortcut. There is no easy way. You know, you can read in the newspaper, learn English in 3 days, or it's laughable. Efforts are the rule to get and achieve whatever you want in that life. And the second question?
The difference between literature language and the language of general textbooks.
Yes. Well, it all depends what kind of literature you read. You see, I'm a classical writer, but I have decided two things. My next book, I will publish it online. That's one thing. And my next book, I will publish it in the format of comics. Why? Because I want to touch younger audiences. And there is no mystery. Who has time to read books today? How many among you read books every day? Yeah, I saw a few. That's good. But once you start working, you will have less time. People read when they are waiting for the train, for the plane, when they have an appointment with a doctor or a dentist, when they have 5 minutes, free time. But it's a discipline. It's very important to keep reading, because it's also a way of discovering the world. You see, I just finished, I wrote 2 books in India, and the last one, normally I write short stories and novels, but I told myself, people have very little time to read, especially the young generation. They prefer video games, they prefer other pastime. So rather than writing a book about one topic, I wrote a book with 350 topics, 350 ideas, thoughts, observations. So it's a book you can start at any page, that you can end at any page. You can start it in the middle, and you can read, if you want, only 5 minutes. This was the idea behind writing this book. And I think that in the next one, I will follow the same. First, use the new medias and try to think out of the box. And what is important is when you write to be read. You do not write to have your book put, on a shelf. At least that's not the reason why I'm writing. So, how to touch larger audience, and especially the young audience, not people I don't write for people my age. They are full of certitudes and so on. I don't like that. I prefer people your age who want to change the world, who already have a number of ideas, who want to promote their own ideas, who want to make things be different in life. You are young, you have a lot of ideas, you have time. Maybe you do not have the money now, so you feel also you are limited in what you can do. But there is a time for everything in life. Being young, you have to learn also being patient. You have to learn a form of detachment. By detachment, I mean doing a lot of efforts, and it is not necessarily paying dividends all the time. You make efforts, nothing happens. You have to continue. You have to be stubborn. You have to be focused on what you want to achieve. And always, as I said, think out of the box. Be different from others. Don't be ashamed of your difference. Just be yourself. Yeah.